Hey guys, welcome to the QGX Academy on getting into esports with Jordan Eastwood. Thank you for taking your time out of your weekend. You could be out having fun. Probably not actually right now. You could be inside having fun, playing games or something, but you're watching us. Glad you're here. Obviously, we have Jordan Eastwood here, esports legend. He's going to teach us a whole bunch of good stuff about esports, and you can never stop learning. I'm real curious to see what he has to say. So I'm going to ask him a couple questions real quick just to get stuff going. If you are interested in esports, Jordan, is there anything like a monster.com but for esports?
Well, there's loads of resources really that you can get involved with, especially in esports. So right now we're seeing a lot of educational stuff come up in terms of educational programs. Sorry, so you can learn stuff like social media, events management, learn a lot about certain video games. You can also learn certain courses that have to do with sort of marketing. There's loads that you can do. Specifically, I don't really have a specific one. It's all dependent on your personal taste. So it's one of them that you're best looking around and seeing what's there for you online. Obviously, there's things like Udemy and stuff, which is stuff created by esports professionals. There might be courses on there. Twitter, Instagram, there's loads of people sharing information on esports all the time. So that's really beneficial. It's all around you, really, the learning. And even in game, I would always say in game's the best way to learn esports. For people, just really speak to people in game, and see what they're saying, how they play.
So what's the most important aspect for somebody in esports, whether they're a player, social media, caster, whatever?
It's just involvement with the community. So one of the biggest things I find, especially with myself, I've really had to grow my confidence. Back when I was younger, doing esports, I wasn't that confident. And when I started growing up in the esports ecosystem, I started realizing, confidence is a really core skill, no matter what you do, especially those in terms of innovation. So, having that courage to take those innovative risks to really push the industry, because it's so new. We need to make sure that that wall that we have keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed, and we really set the standards. So it's very new. Just confidence is really, really key.
So it's like the old adage, 10% talent, 90% perspiration.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to go to school and take classes that will help them in esports, depending on whatever avenue they decide to go, what do you recommend?
So I'll pick this from two different angles. So the first one, if your country doesn't have any natural esports education in there, one thing I do advise is probably taking courses that hit sort of like social media or events management, or certain skills that you would need for certain jobs anyway, and just do a dedicated course in that. But what I would also advise is that you build a portfolio that is central around esports, so that way you then half esports and half actually using the experience that you're building for your portfolio to get a job, and the other half. So I'll give it in terms of the UK. So as we know, in the US, obviously they're doing scholarships and building esports stadiums and all that type of stuff. In the UK, we're starting to accept it in education. So there is a qualification that we call BTEC here, which is a very work-focused qualification for people from the ages of 16 to 19. And that's being introduced this year. So that's just been accepted. And obviously that's going to come into the educational system. Universities have been doing this for a couple of years already. So you're able to sort of do an esports course there. And it covers a wide range of stuff like events management and player management, team management, and around the whole ecosystem. How successful those are, we don't know yet. So because people are still in that education. So
yeah, plus everything's still really fresh, man. Like esports is just starting to come into its own. And what's funny is it took a lot of people outside of esports to make that happen. One quick thing for everybody who's watching and joining us, again, we appreciate it. If you have questions, you'll notice at the bottom it says ask a question, so you can put that in there and it'll kind of like line up your stuff, so then Jordan can tackle them one at a time. And same thing, you'll see polls pop up where you can actually answer polls that we put out along the way. There's already 2 up there, so I recommend that you guys do that, because we can then tailor what we talk about, or Jordan can tailor maybe some things outside of his presentation that he can talk about. So anyway, you guys aren't here to see this ugly face. You're here to see this beautiful man. So I am going to go ahead and mute myself and disappear, and then he is going to educate you. But I'm glad that you guys are with us from all over the world. I'll see you in a little bit.
You guys might not know who I am. So I literally date back, I sound like a dinosaur now, but I literally date back in esports since I was the age of 9 with Unreal Tournament, competed at a competitive level, became obsessed with level design, so game development. And I then went into Halo, which was my main title, and I absolutely love Halo, and competed on there. Counter-Strike 1.6. I made my full professional debut in Call of Duty 4. COD 4 was a special game for me, just because I was at college. I was 16, 17 at the time, and I competed all the way through that game's life cycle. Went to European finals, was going against huge teams. I remember going against Dignitas, and we got completely destroyed. But it was that experience of growing and building that core team, and it took me around 6 months to build that team, 7 months, and then obviously going on to the European finals. From there, I then also went into fighting games at the end of my career, and I retired in 2016. And that was after I went to the World Championships for Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm, which is the picture there. And that was pretty crazy. I've been an esports and community manager for Pro Evolution Soccer, and I've managed tournaments and esports for multiple AAA games. So I've worked with a lot of AAA brands in esports, especially if they're grassroots tournaments. If they come to me and say, we want to get the public involved in this video game, I work on that. I have worked with AAA companies on actually developing esports schemes, even like broadcasters and all that type of stuff. So I've done a lot of work with a lot of different people in esports. And now my name, which I'm pretty well known for, is one of the lead educators in the world for community development in esports. So I work with parents, I work with kids, I work with kids who, are not well off, who are struggling, and using esports as a way to really bring out their gaming passion and turn that into a career, be it in esports or not. Some of my ex-students are now working in social media for big companies, and some are actually working in esports themselves. Or they might be playing professionally. I know one student's doing that as well. So yeah, I do a lot of stuff. But in terms of education, that's my main thing now, and especially helping multiple companies, organisations, football clubs, all that type of stuff. So yeah, enough about me. So let's talk about the esports ecosystem. So when we look at this slide, one thing I wanted to get across in this is that in this esports ecosystem, there is loads. It's not just professional players, and that's something that you need to sort of realize when you start going into esports itself. It's not just about the professional players, it's not about the organizations, and it's not about the team. There's a ton of people behind that. Now, obviously, from my point of view, I've worked obviously in community management, and that's a huge job, and I've worked with excellent teams in that area. Stuff like controller providers, these guys are literally editing their controllers every single day, to make sure it fits well, it feels right when you're competing. Parents itself, parents are in that ecosystem. If you're watching this and you're young, your parents are a part of that. What it's all about, what they allow you to do in terms of gaming, how you can work with your parents to sort of like try and build a career with that. I know with my parents, I was very lucky because I actually competed professionally with my dad. So he was very open to me competing. So yeah, it's there's loads to it, to that ecosystem. And I want you to just take a look and think, where do you fit in that ecosystem? Are you just general public and, you are interested in ecosystem? Are you a game developer and you're interested, right, what about developing something for esports, or how do I actually bend my game design around that esports ecosystem? You might look at non-endemic brands. You someone who makes clothing. Shout out to Buzzkill Esports for the shirt, but these guys are starting to focus around the clothing brand. So is that a way you go? So there's loads to it. And there's a lot to look at within that ecosystem, and where do you fit? Especially influencers, they're a big part of the esports ecosystem. If you're a big Twitch streamer or YouTuber, so ecosystem. There we go. So next, I want to talk about esports in society, just because it's a big part, especially when we start looking at how the public receive esports, and what their public opinion is about it. Is it generally accepted? So one thing I wanted to go over is that each country is completely different. Now, I only comment on the UK just because it's the ecosystem that I know best. Just like I won't comment on the US just because I don't know their full ecosystem. I know a lot, but I've not seen it firsthand, and that's going from my own experience. So one of the biggest things I always say is that the big boss for esports in the UK is parents, because it's generally not accepted that gaming is sort of a good thing, and it's still not there just yet. So how can we as esports players, or people that want to go into esports, how do we change that perception? And, we have to be positive about it. We have to go forward and think, right, what can we do and put in place? Now, the biggest thing I always say is LANs. So, sort of interactions face to face, get people involved. So if your parents aren't really interested in esports, one thing I really found interesting while working with parents to improve their relationships with the kids was they don't get invited enough to sort of experiment and play the video games themselves. And that's really, really important. It's like me sitting there and you're showing me a racing game, and I've never played a racing game before, and looking at it, I think, oh wow, competitively that's awesome, can I ever go? And then I play it, and then I think, wow, I actually see why they like this video game now. Exactly the same thing with esports. We need, in terms of society, we need to get more people involved. And that's how we start changing that perception. Now, as someone in esports, that might be one of your objectives. It might not. That's all about what you want to achieve in esports itself. My main mission was just to make sure people enjoy esports as a whole. My whole career has literally been around observing players and observing people, and just watching them enjoy product. And that's a key thing for me. So yeah, esports in society. So there's three major factors that you need to look at. And the three things that I put down here, some things from a grassroots level that people pointed out to me during my career. So one thing, we have professional esports. So these are the players. Like, we're talking extremely well-developed players that are, at the top of the game. They're setting the standards. When you play against them, you just think, wow, this is crazy. They're amazing. Grassroots esports are those people that are coming into esports or embedded in the esports system, but they're not at professional level yet. And that can be quite an interesting place, because some people do question whether they're casual or are they in grassroots esports. And one thing we had to sort of look at as well is, with casual players, these are literally people that just like to play a game and just sit there and play the game. They're not bothered about it from a competitive standpoint. They just want to enjoy playing a video game. And the esports ecosystem is not interesting to them. So one thing I will warn about, and I always say this because one thing I'm really well known for is, keeping expectations in check. And I think that's really important for your career as well. You need to learn to keep those expectations in check as well, especially in esports, because right now everything's going everywhere and people, are jumping in and all that type of stuff. Literally, probably if I had 100 players, probably only one or two would end up in that professional bracket. It's very, very rare. It's like football. It's extremely rare for someone to go into and be a full professional that's paid, sponsored. It takes a lot of hard work. I mean, I'll give an example. So my cousin was dedicating every day to get into the Fortnite World Cup. And, you know, he had school and his tests and everything like that. And he really put every ounce in to get into that Fortnite World Cup. And he just missed out on qualifying just because he missed out on like a weekend. And obviously I could see the heartbreak in him because he dedicated so much time to make it. But one thing I always say is, how can you turn that sort of like that professional knowledge and that grassroots knowledge into something positive for your career? And, you know, there's nothing wrong with being in grassroots players and competing while also growing your esports career on the side. So grassroots players make up the people who are competing, and casual players, as I said, are those people that are just general, you know, playing the game. They're not at that sort of high level. So if I just quickly go over these. So casual players. So there's 3 things with casual players to move up into grassroots. So one, they just need to compete in the competitive leagues. That can be literally in-game. And as I said, actively compete within the in-game ranking system. So, you know, if you play Valorant and you're a silver or a gold, you know, you're entering that sort of like level from going from casual to grassroots because you're trying to improve. And through that, your mindset's then becoming more competitive. Also engaging community events. You know, if you like competing, you want to be involved in that sort of community sort of bubble. So from a grassroots player to then go on to a professional player, the pictures of me when I was at the ESL World Champs, you need to have a consistent competitive schedule. So all the players who are grassroots, who want to reach that professional level, they want to build a schedule of where they're competing regular every week. One, this helps them build an online presence, especially if they stream it or they make YouTube videos and, you know, you share that out there. It also allows you to then start getting access to the middle level competitions. So in esports, a lot of the stuff that we do, especially when we're doing events, goes off a seeding system. So it means that the top players don't, you know, face against like the lower players. It's all like balanced out. So like number 1 seed might actually go against number 8, which is in the middle, if we're talking about 16 team like sort of event schedule. So, you know, being that top seed is huge. You know, if you're a top seed, people know you are very good at the video game, and, you know, you're on your way there then. And that's what you want to do with the middle level competitions. So that could literally be stuff like events with prize money, or it's competing against teams that are using these as sort of training grounds, and, you know, getting your name out there. And just attend LANs. That's a big thing as well for a grassroots player. They actually go to the events that happen. So in the UK, obviously, we have HCS. Halo's big in the UK. And I love that because obviously I'm an ex-Halo player. So, you know, when we go to these events and players are there, it's easy for them to sort of access people and get their name around, especially around the big professionals that are there competing for the big prize money. Endemic teams. So one thing as well with esports is endemic and non-endemic brands. And this is very, very important for your career as well. So endemic brands are basically companies or products or teams that our natural sole purpose is to be in esports. So example, obviously I've got FaZe Clan here, extremely well-known esports organization. Those guys started off or pretty much are a well-known esports organization. Obviously they do stuff like clothing and all that type of stuff, but their main bread and butter is esports. So, you know, and this can go onto headsets, you know, like I'm wearing Astros right now, controllers, there's loads, and non-endemic brands want to be involved with endemic brands. So you might see obviously car sponsorships now coming for esports teams. So think of the endemic brands as sort of like the sort of like binding stuff for keeping people in. especially within the esports ecosystem. Now, non-endemic, obviously, like Red Bull. So these brands aren't their sole purpose is not in esports. Now, I know Red Bull have Red Bull OG, an excellent Dota team, world champs and everything, and they're exceptional. And Red Bull started off obviously with things like energy drinks that when the brand started coming alive, energy drinks, all that type of stuff. So that's this product, the energy drink, is like their main thing. Esports and stuff is starting to come into it because obviously they also own football clubs. So it's very, very important to sort of acknowledge a non-endemic brand. Now, one thing a lot of people think is that instantly a non-endemic's interested in esports, and that's not true. What they want to do is how esports can work with their product, not how their product can become something in esports. And that's from my own experience. It might be different for someone else. But what you need to handle non-endemics completely differently, especially in esports. You don't, instantly just don't start shoving esports in the face. You need to actually think and innovate and think, right, this is how this product can work within esports, and this is how we can do this sponsorship and sort of these exclusive things. There's loads of stuff. I know Red Bull do a lot of events at the gaming sphere. There's one here in the UK in London. They do loads of stuff, especially with World of Warcraft, League of Legends, community events, and they sponsor that and develop that in their own gaming spheres. I know big streamers use the one in Tokyo for fighting games. I don't know if you watch some of those streamers, if you are into fighting games, but yeah, they used the gaming sphere, Red Bull gaming sphere in Tokyo to hold community events as well. So, I mean, I guess Red Bull is starting to heavily leak into esports. They've been extremely successful, especially in Dota 2. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. But that's an example of a non-endemic brand. Don't forget to ask questions. We will be coming up to a point where we do ask questions, which is now actually. So yeah, I'll look through the questions and I'll answer them if we go through them. So. Okay, so we've got one here. Is it possible to talk about the sponsorship part in esports? Now, sponsorships are really sort of unique in a way. Now, you have to offer something that no one else does, or you have to have a big social following. One thing I've always said is if you're starting your own esports stuff, the first thing a lot of people do when they create a team is focus solely on sponsorships. Now, don't do that. Like, just concentrating on building your brand and working hard, and then the sponsors will come. Don't sit there and think, okay, so I've done a few esports tournaments. Instantly, I want sponsors straight away. You'll get affiliation codes and stuff like that. It doesn't do anything for you. And I'm just saying the truth here. It's very, very important, that you don't start looking at sponsors as the be all and end all. In esports, you need to build yourself up. It's all about you at the end of the day, or your team and your brand that you want to believe in. Not an affiliation code. That's really important. So that's the first mistake I see. People straight away making an esports team instantly after sponsors. Just don't do it. Either that or sponsors might take advantage of you. How to build esports organizations in undeveloped esports scenes in the world. I've actually never really thought about this one. Just because, in the UK, it's slightly underdeveloped. And esports teams here aren't supported in any capacity, really, only by a few people. So one thing I probably would say to that is about my awareness. Build that awareness of esports and, be that brand that's linked with esports. So, example, my old team, Team 13, we were instantly recognized for educational esports because we were helping young people. So instantly our brand started growing with parents that literally didn't believe in esports. So make sure you link sort of your brand with sort of what you're doing in your country. So if you're doing events, make sure your team's involved with that, even if it's just on the side. So what do you think is the retirement age for an esports player? Now, one thing I will say about this, on average, an esports player's career is probably about 1 to 2 years. And that's just from my own research. I know Counter-Strike and Call of Duty do have the biggest sort of set of pros that have stayed in the scene for a very, very long time. I've seen a lot of professionals this year start out and then it's just not worked out for them. They've not played very well, or their play style's not what the team's actually looking for, and that's it. So what's important is for you to build a brand when you're at that professional level. I keep saying brand, but it's very, very important. Just keep building that brand and developing it. And now you're probably seeing a lot of esports players don't compete, but they're streaming. So example, Shroud, Ninja, you probably heard of them. They're huge ex-pros, especially Ninja in the Halo scene. He stopped competing now, and obviously he's made a huge brand for himself. So it's still his career. When Halo Infinite comes out, I don't know whether he's getting involved, but that's a whole nother conversation. So I want to be an esports caster, but where or how do I begin? We're going to get into that. Where is the general lifespan of a game in esports? I'd hate to start training on a game. It's all about the community. So esports is all about that community involvement and development. The community makes a game live or die, pretty much. Example, there's certain games like Lawbreakers, a huge game that was very heavily focused on esports. I actually did the UK's first tournament. I think, as far as I was told, it was from the developers themselves. Excellent game in esports. When people actually played it competitively, one of the best games I've ever played on an esports setting. Unfortunately, it was too hardcore for esports. You need to let casuals grow in, and then those casuals then turn into sort of grassroots, and then obviously that opens up a professional and also community events as well. That's really what is John's opinion on the Braves esports college program. I'm not accustomed to the esports college program there, so I don't have a comment, unfortunately. So apologies. Can you talk about community management in esports? We're going to go over that in the next slide. I want to do more content creation on YouTube. I'm not necessarily... Yeah, that's fine. Content creation is really important for a lot of companies. So how do you think esports can help and benefit society, companies, and business during these times? Now, that's a good comment. So I do a lot of work with this, working with non-endemic brands, coming up with awesome ideas and, how to really connect with young people or, parents, adults with their products and all that type of stuff. So one thing I definitely would say with that is it's beneficial in the fact that it's reaching out to new audiences. As we know, as time goes on, technology is moving quicker and quicker. Now, esports is a part of that technology move. And, it's all about that engagement. People like to get lost in their own world when they play video games. They meet loads of friends online as well. That's how I met a lot of my sort of friends, especially in the esports industry. We met online first, just playing games together. So there's a lot of key aspects to it that are really important, especially for these type of companies. And what I would say is it's really beneficial in terms of friendship and sort of like skills building as well. How do you think so when is it okay for kids to start playing games, especially stuff like Fortnite, PUBG? So Fortnite, I think, is okay. PUBG is obviously a bit of a different one. See, I played at a very young age, but this is when age ratings weren't really a major thing back then or really regulated. One thing I will say is when, say, like we do a game and it's 16 plus, so in the UK, it goes 12, 16, and then an 18. So if it's a 16 plus, 100% nobody will be playing in that unless they prove their age in the 16 and older. It's extremely important. And one thing I would definitely say is do not. I've seen people skip the age rating. on the games to sort of fill out numbers in the esports tournament. Do not do it. You're going to put yourself in a really bad legal situation, especially here in the UK. Even if you have parents' permission, I will not accept people lower than what the age of the game is. So yeah, I know a lot more violent games are sort of accepted into esports because there's a lot more skill differentiation. But yeah, that's a tip for me, especially in these types of games. Especially, I mean, Counter-Strike didn't even have an age rating until it came out on Xbox, so there was no official age rating for Counter-Strike, so it was hard to regulate. And then it came out on the Xbox original, and it got basically an age rating slapped on it. So yeah, that's when it started becoming a bit of an interesting topic in that area. And one last question before we move on, sorry. I'm a brand new streamer and I stream more than one game and more than one genre. How do I start big? One thing I would say is just stick to a game that you love. All the big streamers didn't start off as a multi-game streamer. They always built their core audience around a single game. So example, there was like Grand Theft Auto streamers. They really built their brand around that, and then they moved on to sort of other games now and then. And there is also sort of things like like with me, Final Fantasy, I was known for my Final Fantasy streams, Final Fantasy 11, the MMO. And I just built my sort of area around there, because if someone watches you, they're watching you because they want to see that video game. So especially if you say like you stream Apex Legends, you know, they want to watch you play Apex, and you grow your community around that. I literally only a small percentage will be the ones who will stay with you when you change games and whatever. So yeah, it's very important that you just stick to one game. I know it might be boring or might be hard, but that's literally how you build your brand. That's the way I see it. I'm not a stream expert, but yeah, from my own, yeah. All right, okay. So 2 more questions that have been asked to look at. So the top one. So who are good esports players, teams? Esports players, teams, or streamers you feel set a good example for up and comers? So it's up to you. I always support local teams. That's my big thing for esports that I look up to. Just look at my local esports teams and sort of set in. So obviously for me, it was Manchester Battle Arena, the fighting game scene. Those guys are amazing. They've done a lot of excellent work. Buzzkill, these guys are sort of I used to work with. But I know they've come from a very small following into a huge one. So I like supporting them, you know, help grow that sort of esports scene with them. Big teams, I do support 100 Thieves from a professional level. So that's who I support. Excellent organization, just because Nadeshot's literally doing crazy stuff in that org right now. Obviously, they've opened the offices and the clothing brand that sells out instantly, all that type of stuff. They're probably one of the COD teams that didn't obviously enter the Call of Duty World League for obvious reasons. It's whoever you relate to in terms of the brand. Probably my best advice on that. Okay, so I'm going to have to move on. So thank you for your questions. Really appreciated. So yeah, we'll move on to this, and yeah, we'll go over the job roles. So when I click on this, it works. There we go. So Shoutcaster. So I've only done this 3 times during 3 events. One for Mario Kart 8, one for Lawbreakers, and one for Overwatch. And I can't speak from a full professional level. I'm just talking from a grassroots level on this. But there is key skills I noticed that you do need, especially when going into sort of these job roles. So one, great observation skills. You need that. There's so much going on screen, especially if it's Overwatch. Like there's so much going on. It gets crazy, and you want to sort of look at that and think, right, what information can I pick out there that's good for a general consumer? Because most people who are going to be watching it might not have a clue about Overwatch. So yeah, observation skills are key. You need to transfer that information and, you know, get that out to the public straight away. And that links in with verbal communication, which is the next point. It's really, really, really important. You know, you get your words across. it's like with me, I had to sort my accent out because I'm from Northern England, in Manchester. So yeah, I have to sort like my accent out and stuff, especially to try and speak clearly. So that's a skill in itself. It takes a lot of practice. I'm getting there. If you can still understand me, then yeah, I think I've sort of got there. So yeah, game knowledge. So knowing how the game works. Obviously, in terms of how like the core game mechanics, how the players are using that, how they're utilizing that against the enemy. And that works really well with a Shoutcaster. Example, I've played a lot of Mario Kart 8, but I didn't know what one of the items was, and one of the players was actually using it quite a lot. Now, what I learned is that it actually did something in game, and I didn't know that, and that was my fault. And that's something that you need to sort of know. You need that core game knowledge. All the people casting the games have either been ex-professional or someone who literally sits there playing it all the time. So yeah, it's very, very important skill. You need to be very relatable. So I don't know if I'm relatable, if you enjoy me on your screen and you think, this guy knows what he's talking about, you need to be relatable. So you need to enjoy watching someone. You need to sort of not have like that sort of tone in your voice where you're just like, standard mono sound. And, you need to be exciting. You need to bring that excitement to the people that are watching and bring that forward and make people be interested in the product. They're watching a video game on the screen, but also hearing your voice. So yeah, it's those are the 4 key skills, especially when I've sort of trained people in shoutcasting from a basic level students. That's sort of the key thing that I've put in there. So yeah, next, community management. So community management is really, really huge. You're in charge of your whole community, getting everyone hyped up. Really getting people involved in the product as well. That's what you're there for. You are the voice of the community. Now, the games that don't do that well, the games that don't take feedback well, don't have great community managers, and I'll just say that straight off. Just because it's very important that developers understand how esports players are playing the games, what's not working, what's unbalanced. So I don't know if any of you guys have played Valorant at the moment. Obviously, right now there's a character that is extremely broken that's just been added in, and it's about hearing those voices. And to be fair, Riot's been really good at fixing those issues. So that's great community management. The games that don't fix stuff, they're the ones where a community manager is just not doing their job properly, basically. So written and verbal communication, you'll be writing tweets, you might be writing posts. You might be writing sort of updates about, the next patch that's coming out. So you'll have to engage with the developers and translate that into something that the community can understand and get behind. You're also in charge of making sure that nothing negative from the studios getting out as well. So an example, if a studio really doesn't want to sort of do a certain change, you need to word that and get the community behind the developers in that way. It's a bit of a confusing sense, but it's quite political in terms of how a community manager manages stuff. You definitely need to know your game knowledge, and you need to know your community. So who are your professional players? So I'll give an example. I don't think the guys will mind me saying this. So when obviously I was doing Pro Evolution soccer, I had to learn who all the pro players were, and I had to learn how they all play, and how they use their socials, what events they're doing, and really promote that. Really promote them from an esports point of view for certain competitions. There's loads in community management that you need to know, and it's just about being that innovative forefront for your community. You're that voice for the community, and that's where I go into innovation. There's nothing more boring than someone who doesn't create stuff for the community. So, what about a Valorant Cup where everyone's playing as Raze, or Mario Kart where you can only use blue shells? Those sort of events are really funny, and it gets your community really invested in it. Or community cups, see who the best person in the community is that wants to compete. There's that's the sort of stuff that you need to do as a community manager. And also just be active in the community. That's just the number one rule. It says it in the name. If you're not doing that, then you're not doing the job properly. So there's loads of stuff in terms of that. So Analyst. So this is what I do now, pretty much, because I analyze parents, how they interact with a video game. I analyze sort of players, pro players, how they play the video games, how they use the levels, the gameplay. And then obviously I work with AAA studios on how they can fix that and how that can be sort of changed or developed to fit these sort of like different social norms that we have going on. But an analyst in terms of the general esports sense, we also have people that work in esports teams that do this for pro players and managers. So you can say, oh, the enemy team's using this. This is how they play. This is how we need to play. If they choose like Blitzcrank, this is how we're going to counter, because this is the way that they play and use the map. This is their jungle rotations. These are the sort of players, they're building and giving information. So if you love reading a video game and learning everything about it and the maps and stuff, this is the job for you. You need to know basic game knowledge. That's core. And I'm talking about the core game knowledge. You need to have great written communication. You need to be a good problem solver. So you need to see what the issues are and, how you can counter that. You need to be a full gameplay expert. You need to know everything about the gameplay, all the way. If you talk about fighting games, we're talking about frame data. We're talking about certain stuff like combos, etc. That is analyst is really key within the esports industry. I do it in a different light in terms of corporations and stuff and development studios, but obviously there's also a job there as well for actual esports teams that do that. So. Social media, pretty self-explanatory. So you need to be creative, start building your portfolio, trends and community awareness. What's trending right now? So obviously we have reactive and non-reactive content. So reactive, something's happened in the world. You're basically building content for that's reactive. And then obviously non-reactive is just general content that you just want to develop for the brand. Stuff that involves the community, that's one of the key things that you want to do. And you want to be innovative, you want to do cool stuff that people don't see. So, one of the biggest things is you'll get a lot more engagement on social media through something like a video, because someone's actually, bringing themselves to it and they're watching it, they're actually consuming that. So if you ever scroll through Twitter or Instagram, sometimes there's posts that you don't care about. It needs to really pop and really grab that attention. It's very, very key. Colors and all that type of stuff. That's very, very key to be in social media, especially in esports. And you want to promote the players. So, if they're streaming clips, all that type of stuff on Twitch. So, and then event admin, this is like, I've got loads of pictures of me, but I wasn't able to use certain pictures. So, I just throw myself everywhere. But I've been in all these job roles, so hopefully it'll help you. Event admin, so you're literally you're there controlling the event, so you need to be confident, you need to be understanding and strict, because people will try and cheat. That's something that is bad about the industry. People do try and cheat, especially influencers. Like, I'm just going to say it out right now, influencers sometimes try and cheat. They try and like, oh well, can you not change the bracket because I'm making a YouTube video? It's not fair on the competition and the people that have entered your competition. It's really important that you sort of look at that and stand your ground. Your reputation is built on this event. If there's anything in there that's going to compromise that, so make sure you're strict. It's so important, especially on like people maybe being toxic at the event as well. I've had to deal with that a lot. That's really, really key. I love doing events. So, I've added game knowledge there twice. Oops. But yeah, game knowledge twice straight away. You need to know pretty much how people are cheating or exploits. So there was a thing about CSGO where a team got disqualified for using a certain boost to gain an advantage. That's the sort of stuff you need to know as an events admin. You need to know how people are abusing systems It happens all the time, so you need to make sure you're on that. Also, what characters are banned if you're doing fighting games? Obviously, Hero from Smash Bros. Or Dragon Quest. There was a whole controversy about using that character in esports tournaments because obviously he had that move that can insta KO. So yeah, so there's loads that you need to sort of like look at as an events admin. Sorry, I'm just being conscious of time. Now, three key things about gaining experience. So you want to build your portfolio for your discipline. So if you want to be in social media, make sure you build a social media portfolio and make some of it, or some of the content for esports. Make sure to make it varied as well. Just because if you don't go into esports, you could actually end up in a social media company that manages accounts for an esports company, and they'll go, oh wow, he's got esports experience, or he's built stuff, let's build that. So yeah, it's actually quite important, sort of obviously to sort of understand that. Sorry, I had an esports call about them. So compete in LAN. That's probably my biggest thing. So actually be at LAN and compete. There's so much you can gain from that. You get to know the community. You get to go up on stage and feel what it's like to be these people that you've been looking at. And, it's so important to sort of gain that knowledge. That's probably the biggest thing I would say. The biggest learning curve I had to do, especially when I was younger, was actually go to an event and actually have people watch me live, cheering me on or booing me while I'm playing. I had to show my skill. And that was the scariest thing for me, especially when, being at a young age. So yeah. And next thing is just try and qualify for online events and invitationals. See how the community is making certain rule sets. The community controls esports. They dictate what is acceptable in a game's esport or not. So yeah, it's very, very important. And adapt to how it's changing. So, example, in Halo 5, they removed actually some of the core gameplay aspects. So some of the movement aspects that you can use, it completely changed the game. So I had to adapt and change. So next, so I'll actually, so I asked one of the esports professionals from the Halo scene, the UK Halo scene, who's had 3 LAN tournaments at HCS, which is the highest level for grassroots Halo esports. So these are the qualifiers, basically, HCS. And he's been there. So obviously I asked him, what did you get from going to a LAN? And, why is it better, going to a LAN and just playing at home? So it's better than playing at home than online tournaments, and playing one game on LAN is like playing 50 games online. LAN has improved my confidence, and I'm now wanting to compete even more. I prefer competing at LAN tournaments as my skill development within Halo improves more compared to online, as it's not just easy to get noticed by bigger teams, but also to develop my confidence and skills by playing against some of the best in the world. I also get to be integrated within the professional community and meet new and upcoming talent who I can also learn from, which would not be possible online. So as you can see, LAN tournaments are so key to meeting people in your community and developing that as well. So next, we're just going to go over the future of esport. Just a quick. So speed running, it's huge. I don't know if you've ever watched speed running before. It's one of my favorite things to watch on Twitch. I always watch speed runners when playing a game. They're always on, my other screen. You guys are on my other screen at the moment. That's why I keep looking over here. But yeah, it's speed running is huge, and it's a form of competing without actually competing. And it's getting bigger and bigger now. And it's a way to include people's favorite games. And it's also a way for casuals to get involved as well. So if we look at speedrunning and how they compete, there's literally things like categories. So they might have all bosses category. So you're trying to complete the game and beat all the bosses and set a time. There might be like 120 star runs in Super Mario 64. That game's old. How do you compete in Super Mario 64 while speedrunning? It's, using your knowledge of the game and, your passion for the game. to compete against others. There's even a 0-star. I think there's a 0-star category and a 16-star. There's loads of categories that you can compete on with sort of speedrunning. Randomizer. So everything in the game is randomized. So like Ocarina of Time, all the chests are randomized. So you say like you and your friends, you all put the same seed in and you all load into the same game. So the items will all be in the same place with each other. And then basically you might get like the ultra powerful sword, the master sword right at the beginning. So what do you do then? You change up your tactics based on what items you get and where you find them. It's so interesting. It's so unique. I love it so much. And then there's just races, like get to the end as quick as possible. The standard. So speedrunning is one way that esports is evolving. It's a really great way to get those people who aren't in that sort of grassroots esports ecosystem. We're then taking casuals and we're then bringing them into the esports ecosystem. So sit with your parents and say, right, try and race me on this game and try and beat me. So yeah. And the last one is VR. So VR is really important. Now, VR is obviously pushing technology in terms of competitive multiplayer. And, the reason why it's so important is because it offers that unique gameplay which caters to the casual interest, but also has physical and mental esports elements that make him competitive. You're moving around. It's like, Wii Fit or anything like that, or Just Dance. Guilty pleasure of mine. You're moving about and getting active. And it's, it adds that sort of fitness element to it as well. Now, one thing with VR that you do have to look at is the different headsets and technologies that are available. So if we look at PSVR, one big thing is it's got a huge user base, like ridiculously huge, and it's got dedicated hardware to meaning everyone's on the same playing field. And this is the same with consoles as well. When you argue is console decent or not, you've got them in there, and it's accessible to casual players. People can pick up a PSVR, plug it into the PlayStation, and play. But it only has head tracking. That's the bad thing in terms of I can sit here and only move my head and like move it sideways. Where standalone PC VR headsets like the Oculus. Now we've got like the Quest, which is literally battery operated, or you can plug it in, so you don't even need to. You can just put it on straight away and play. And it's got room scale, so you can literally lie on the floor if you want to. You can jump in the air. Try and do 360 no scopes. Actually doing it. It's there's a lot more freedom in movement. Which means that there's a lot more engagement. So if a character's lying on the floor in a game, it shows that. Some games, so Echo Arena, Pavlov, Onward, Firewall, those have esports sort of VR stuff. So if you do want to check them out, go and do it. Obviously, they're all shooter games, apart from Echo Arena. But it's the most engaging in terms of Oculus VR, sorry, just because obviously, there's a lot to it in terms of knowing, aiming and the recoil and all that type of stuff that you would think when you're playing Counter-Strike or Apex or Valorant, but transferring it into an actual, virtual controllers and stuff.
Hi, guys. I know you missed me. Jordan's good company, but both of us even better. I got to go quick, Jordan. For me, like when I'm streaming or even like when I'm playing with a group of friends, I just do me. A lot of people said you should come up with like a persona, like how Dr. Disrespect or somebody has. And I kind of have a little bit of that, but I still keep it me. So
yeah,
how important is it for a player, whether it's esports or streaming or whatever, to have this persona?
It's very important. I mean, with me, when I stream, I literally have like this big hype aspect to me. So I'm adding that sort of extra persona, and then when I'm like behind the camera, I'm like literally like, oh, professional job. Well, when I'm in business, I'm professional Jordan, and then obviously there's just me in casual. So it's like having 3 different personas. It's very important. It's something that people can relate to because it's not an every sort of everyday person that you're interacting with. It's like a personality that you interact to. It's like a character. So the way I put it is, if you saw Superman or you watch Superman streaming, you'd love it because you're interacting with the character. You know what I mean? But then if you're interacting with Clark Kent, you're just like, oh, he's an average, everyday person. There's not really that much interesting about him. So yeah, it's think of it as that way. Think of the person as being that superhero, being that set character that has these characteristics that people can like just really enjoy while watching. So obviously Dr. Disrespect does the whole green screen stuff, and his production level is like on another level on Twitch. So yeah,
somebody helping him in the side, Alex or whatever. So that definitely makes it a lot easier. It's hard not to stream by yourself, and then I look at people with like these crazy animations and all this kind of stuff. It's tricky, man. Like, and you got to track all your data, and I still am messing mine up, but. So, quick esports question too. Like I said when we were talking the other day, when esports first came out, that was cool. But then when people were like, "Oh, esports athletes and this and that," I kind of rolled my eyes and I was like, "Whatever, man. I played sports. I know what an athlete is." Now that's completely changed. I definitely think of them as athletes, especially with diet and exercise and all that kind of stuff. But most people don't. Like, if you look at especially the talk shows in America and the UK and that kind of stuff, just bashing people. And of course, once the kid won like the $3 million, then everybody was like, oh, wait a second. So what do you think about the fact that it took people like Rick Fox and now Drake and stuff like that to kind of bring it more into the mainstream and be socially acceptable?
These guys are huge influencers. So my guess is that they just like playing video games, and they've sort of experienced it for themselves, so they know the benefits to it, and it's something that they want to get involved with. So, and that's obviously an industry. Obviously, this industry is evolving. Sorry, at a rapid rate. So things are literally changing all the time. And I just think these influencers really support gaming, really, and what it brings. Even when I'm sitting there playing Mario Kart, my friends face to face, or so I know someone mentioned Rocket League, playing Rocket League as well with friends. Just doing that and being a huge influencer, instantly thinking, actually, this is something that you could definitely make a career in. And it's two sides of a coin. One side you can literally say, right, okay, you can't do anything with this. It's just an electronic thing that you just interact with. And on the other side, you're like, wow, this can actually bring a lot of sort of positives to someone's life. And yeah, I think that's where the differentiation comes from, especially for people like Drake and stuff. They probably are gamers themselves, so that's all obviously where it stems from. And obviously then it just grows naturally.
All right, so now we've got parents, politicians, and for a bit the World Health Organization, who were all talking about gaming is bad for you, it's addictive, it can cause personality disorders, all this stuff. It can make you angry and leads to mass shootings and all this. Where are you on that whole thing?
So for me, it's all about moderation. So I'll be honest about it. It's all about that moderation. So obviously there was a video going around of like a 5-year-old playing Call of Duty. As someone with a son myself, I sort of don't agree with that. And this kid is like amazing. Like I've never seen accuracy. Like it's mad. And there's a reason why he went viral. But for me as a parent, I think there needs to be moderation in that. Video games are very good at building worlds and getting you invested in these worlds. And I love Final Fantasy for these reasons. When I was younger, I just got lost away in these worlds. Everybody just reacts to content differently, so it's very important that we moderate that. And we look at stuff and think, right, if someone is getting too aggressive on a video game, or they're starting to pick up these really toxic sort of energies, and and they're being really toxic in the community, it's all about education. Educating them and saying, this is wrong. This is how we should be acting. I mean, when someone's been toxic in an event, I've took them away and said, look, that's not acceptable in any case. And I sit down with them and I educate them. It's very, very, very important. People like to hide online with like anonymous stuff. in terms of usernames and all that. So especially when you're doing an online tournament, it's very, very key that people in place, as you said, that take scientists and stuff who are saying all this type of stuff. They need to know that that online anonymity. Oh, I can't even say the word. A lot of people like that meme culture and bring that forward is what I'm trying to say. And we're trying to get that out because it just has no place in esports whatsoever. Especially the meme culture, especially it can be disgusting at points. So yeah, it just depends on each person that reacts to a video game.
So when you're like organizing an event or even advising on it or whatever, do you guys have like a set of rules that you lay out for the teams and the players beforehand?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing I probably didn't mention, which I should have as events manager, is you need to make sure that you are representing that brand. That if you got a game sponsored for your event, you're representing them. So you need to know their brand guidelines. It's the same with social and community management and all that type of stuff. You need to know community guidelines. It's so important, and brand guidelines. So example, first thing I say is players, right? So say like a game's like say like we're working with a game that's for young audiences. Certain words you're not allowed to say, certain things you're not allowed to show on stream, certain maybe political messages that might not be allowed on stream, just because the game's aimed at kids. So as a brand, they might not want that obviously being shown. It's important to know that, and it's not you trying to censor anything. It's just the fact that at the end of the day, your reputation's there, and you're being a brand ambassador basically. So yeah, I mentioned that to all the players and everything before every event. One thing as well that I do is make sure that everyone's safe. That's 100% important for me. Make sure people who might have autism, they're in a safe place, and that they're okay, and that they can handle the stuff that's going on at the event. So if there's loud sounds or anything like that, try and cater to everyone really, and make sure it's an enjoyable experience. Esports, we love to compete. That's what we want to do. And when it goes back to the brand, people like, oh, this game's awesome. The guys who pretty much represented it, really made me feel welcome, and I had a really good time with it.
Okay, here comes an easy one. What do you think about when brands care about regional concerns and things like Hearthstone, for instance?
Oh, right. Yeah, I think I know what you're going on about. I mean, for me, I don't know how to say this really. So for me, in terms of anything political, I try and keep it out of video games. People want to play video games to sort of like, get away from certain things and play. It's really important that everyone has a voice, and I support like pretty much all the movements that are happening. It's really important, for social justice, etc. So, but one thing with esports is that we're sort of there to like enjoy a video game. Everyone wants to escape, and these issues happen all around the world. So it's very important that we acknowledge them. But there's sometimes a right and a wrong place to do it. And some people are really passionate, and I think people shouldn't have lost their careers over stuff like that. It probably should have just been you shouldn't have said that. Just make sure it doesn't happen again. So yeah, it's so important that we support a lot of the movements that are happening around the world at the moment. And esports can be a place for that as well. It's just whether it's in a right setting or not.
Okay, anybody who's watching or is in the class or whatever, obviously we have COVID-19 and a million other things, but right now let's talk about Corona. So we have Corona going on. How can they get things happen with the community from their house or whatever?
Yeah, so there's loads of, like, I'm not joking, there is a ton of online audiences at the moment. I mean, tournaments, sorry, that you can get involved in. There's a lot. So it's up to you guys to sort of get involved with that. Look around, see what's happening. So if there is... So obviously, if there is like sort of certain tournament systems, like me, I was supposed to be competing in Face It tonight for the Halo qualifiers for MCC on PC. But I didn't realize it goes on till 7 in the morning, and I have a son to look after. So, so yeah, it's that sort of won't be happening tonight. So, but yeah, that's the thing. There's online tournaments for that. So yeah, you just need to sort of
like FIFA or Fortnite, for example.
Yeah, so Fortnite, you can do that in game. Obviously, there's a lot of qualifying going on at the moment, so that's that's a big thing. And then FIFA, I'm not too sure about FIFA. I don't play a lot of FIFA, even though I do love football, but I've just not dedicated a lot of time in it. I'm the person that you beat 10-0, so yeah. There's loads of stuff with COVID-19. The main thing is that people are safe. That's one big, and people are safe, and they're okay. So there's loads of options for you out there to compete on.
So you don't like spending all your money on Ultimate Team packs?
To be honest, I probably spent about 300 quid on Ultimate Team.
All right. So my thing is getting people involved. So you put the effort in to make something happen. Like these guys, Qatar Games Expo, they're doing the FIFA tournament and the Fortnite tournament. And I've talked to quite a few people who are hesitating to be in the tournament because they're not sure that they're good enough. So what would you say to somebody who's thinking that? Just
give it a go. You don't know unless you try. That's my attitude. So, yeah, that's something that you need to sort of learn. Just give it a go. Don't hold back. Like obviously, if you start streaming or you're making videos, the hardest bit is uploading that first video on YouTube and looking at the reaction to it. So, yeah, that's a key thing that you need to. That's the thing that you need to sort of like understand. Esports has said about the LAN stuff. Actually competing and gaining that sort of experience and confidence that comes from actually attending and competing itself. Like I competed in Halo 5 like last week. And we got absolutely trashed. So, but like I gave it a go. I wanted to see what level I'm at the moment and what I need to improve.
So, what level do you think you're at?
Oh, I'm low. On Halo 5 at the moment, I'm low. Like I don't play it enough. Like as I said, I've been playing Valorant and other games as well. So, yeah, I'm not.
All right, so we'll touch on social media before we close out. Yeah. You're like a ninja online. I cannot find you. So how can people find you on social media, Twitch, whatever?
Yeah, so if you want to follow my social media, it's NXXI at NXXI. You should know actually. I retweeted one of your things. So and then on Twitch, it's NX_PvP. I do stream now and then. I was streaming some Halo last night. I just do chilled out streams now or competitive streams where we'll do some ranked leagues and whatever. So, or if we're competing in a ladder. So yeah, there's loads that you can find me on. LinkedIn as well. I'm pretty much nearly at 2,000 connections on LinkedIn now. So yeah. If you're on LinkedIn Professional Network, I put all my professional education stuff on there. Yeah, loads.
Yeah, especially with you, like going out and doing all these classes and that kind of thing. So for those of you who are watching, obviously Qatar Gaming Expo is putting on Qatar Games Academy. So make sure you guys are following them on their social media, interacting with them and all that stuff, because they put out a lot of updates.